Lawin Media Network,
bringing to you the most relevant content across all platforms.
Business, legal, politics, health, lifestyle, and entertainment.
Your source for all the news and updates in the greater Houston community from Texas and all over the world.
Get informed and empowered with Lawin Media Network.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Pink Table Talk. I'm your host, Dr. Carly D., a doctorally prepared nurse, educator, mentor, professional development specialist, and a domestic violence survivor and thriver. I'm so happy to be bringing to you guys season 3 of Pink Table Talk on Lawin Media Network. You guys are either watching us live through our YouTube channel or through our Facebook page. And if you don't happen to catch us live, you can catch us on one of our 18 different podcast platforms. I'm so excited that we have a wonderful and fantastic guest with us here tonight. He is my mentor. He helped me through my doctoral program. And without him, I wouldn't be Dr. Carly D, as you all know today. So today we have Dr. Gary Shelton. He is an adult oncology nurse practitioner and an oncology clinical nurse specialist. He holds many certifications in the field of nursing. He has also is a member of several professional nursing societies, including American Cancer Society, the Advanced Practitioner Society for Hematology and Oncology, the Oncology Nursing Society, the Nurse Practitioner Association of New York, and the American Nurses Association for Pain Management Nursing, and International Society of Nurses in Cancer Care. So he is a very, very busy, well-established, and distinguished professional. Dr. Gary has also been a speaker at organizations locally, nationally, and internationally. He has also authored and co-authored numerous abstracts, journal articles, and nursing book chapters. His passions include mentorship, consultation, and professional development for his colleagues, peers, and he also loves to participate in evidence-based practice to improve patient outcomes for patients with cancer. Along with his devotion to oncology nursing and transformational leadership, he has his first book that we will be discussing today on the show. So I would like everybody to welcome Dr. Gary Shelton to the show.
Oh, there's my face. Hello.
Hi, Dr. Shelton. I'm so happy I got to do this with you and that you are here today with us. I have enjoyed working with you throughout the years and just once again wanted to thank you so much for mentoring me and being my preceptor through the doctoral program. As you know how challenging that was and all the dramas that we had.
Well, you know, the whole thing about mentor-mentee, you get something, I get something. So it's a give and take. It's a pro and con. It's fun for both ways. I mean, I wouldn't be a mentor if I didn't learn something from you. So it works both ways. And years from now, when we talk about it, It'll be that you're my mentor.
Yes, I could say we honestly could not have imagined when we started our mentor and mentee relationship that we would be talking about it on a podcast about over 4 years later. So it's definitely been quite the journey.
Mm-hmm. And you being in Texas and me being in New York, but.
Yes, I know we can't meet up for our sangria dates anymore.
Well, we can. We just wouldn't be able to clink the noise with the glasses together. Good. Thank you very much for inviting me. This is very exciting for me.
Yes, thank you so much. And I see you've been very busy, always into so many different things. That's kind of what inspires me to keep going, to continue pursuing my own certifications and just other professional endeavors. So for our audience members at home, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and your professional career?
Well, I don't speak like a New Yorker, other than I can speak fast. I'm born and raised in Illinois. I am from a small town of less than 20,000 people. I mean, I don't want to say in the middle of nowhere because that's not kind. It's where I grew up, and it's a fabulous place, of course, for the people who live there. I was not seen as the most interesting person or the smartest person, or I guess I wasn't seen as the person who might be the most likely to succeed. So I left that small town as soon as I could. But it wasn't particularly nurturing for a boy who wanted to be a nurse. And I knew early on that really was what I wanted to do. So, I don't want to be the poster child for somebody who's successful and started that way. And we will talk a minute about a project, and my next book will be about bullies, but that's a side story. So I'm from small town southern Illinois, near Chicago, for the arts, for the shopping, which changed my life a little bit. But I was really reared in southern Illinois in an even smaller community. And the option for me, once I decided that I was ready for nursing, regardless of what people might think, becoming an LPN was my option, because in the junior college, that was what was offered. I became an LPN, and I was so proud to be that. And then I did a 2-year bridge program to become an RN. I moved to Central Florida and got a job on the telephone. I want to live in Florida by the ocean. Did the LPN to 2-year RN program there. Started a bachelor's degree, started a master's degree, moved to New York City then and got my first master's at Columbia, then got my second master's, which was as a nurse practitioner, then got the doctorate. So probably other people wouldn't go the same sort of route, but for me it was kind of necessary because of my upbringing, where I was from. I kind of needed to be at those levels for a while to know who I was, to understand what I could do and be. And I needed sort of that training as an LPN to communicate with people, to be an RN. I was so proud when I was able to put RN after my name. Oh my God. To get RN magazine and not be lying about it. But I mean, for knowing me, I needed that reinforcement of what I'm doing, what I'm learning, why I want to learn more, why I need more to feel like I'm able to give back more. So that's how but it took several decades to get to who I am. And maybe other people don't need to do it quite that way. Yes.
Wow, that's quite the journey. So how many degrees in total do you have currently?
Well, I started my doctorate 3 times. So I wanted an EDD. I thought, I'm already a nurse. I don't need a doctor of nursing. I wanted a doctor of nursing science, which Columbia was doing. But I ended up with the doctor of nursing practice rather than a PhD because I wanted to stay clinical. And that's what I'm still doing, taking care of patients at the bedside with my other nurses
Wow.
that's the most rewarding for me, because as you mentioned, communication is my science more than, you know, the hottest, best new treatments for illness.
Yes, that's so true. I feel that a lot of the nurses today, the new nurses coming out, they're only looking at how much money they can earn, and, you know, trying to, hurry up and get into travel nursing and all those things. But I think that your journey, you know, how you started out as an LPN, and then now you're, you know, the doctorate in nursing, and, you know, you've co-authored textbooks. I think it's such an amazing journey, and it truly shows your resilience and your passion for nursing and caring for people.
Mm-hmm. I mean, who knew? My first job was $4.57 an hour. So we have come a long way from that. Of course, that was a while ago, but still.
Yes. Oh, wow.
It wasn't for the money, you know. And I would like to think that nurses, even now, I mean, obviously we have to make money and we have to earn a living, and I like to play, and I can't play without working. But I don't think money really is the impetus for most of us in our field. We certainly feel like we deserve the money we get, but I think that there's a calling.
Yes, absolutely. And such an interesting story, you know, you coming from such a small town to now living in New York City. Did you ever think you were going to end up in a huge city like New York?
I mean, if I were hypnotized, which I can't be, because people have tried to hypnotize me. I think that, yes. I mean, love Chicago, and I think Chicago is the prettiest city in the world almost. But no, I'm a shopper. I want museums. I mean, I love the backyard. I love growing things. I love animals. You know, even if it's a cow or a pig, like in my book that we'll talk about. But I think I kind of sensed that my identity needed to be associated with a big city, and maybe part of it's the autonomy or the anonymity that a big city gives, and maybe initially that was what I needed. But I think I love it.
Yes, me too. I do miss the city, I have to say. I mean, Houston is a smaller city. There's definitely a lot of museums, and we get some of that culture and, you know, some shopping and lots to do in the nightlife. But there's nothing like New York. You know, New York City just has everything, you know, and it's just hard to explain unless you're there. You know, just the ability to walk down the street, you see something new every day. You can get all kinds of foods and snacks and, you know, whatever you want, and you're walking it off, so you don't have to worry about gaining too much weight.
Right.
But yes, I do miss it.
Yeah. When I first moved to New York, I would travel to different parts of town to discover, you know, the Village and Soho. Yes. And I noticed that if you look at people, women in particular, of course, if you look at women from the waist down, they have the most fabulous legs because they are walking. Maybe they're in stilettos or maybe they're in sneakers, but their legs are fabulous. And then as you keep looking up, you may realize that they're, 75 years old, but they look fabulous. And yeah, I mean, New York, as you know, is a walking city. So.
Yes, that is true. I have been complimented on my calves, my legs. People are surprised whenever I do wear, on the occasions where I do wear a skirt, people are like, "Oh, you have nice legs." Yeah, they're very toned, because I mean, we could walk a mile or so in a day, just out taking errands and just seeing the city. So yeah, that's definitely something I've heard. Yes, but you're such an interesting, person, and you've done so many great things in your life. And I love the fact that you do give back to the community. Like I said, we met through the ANA mentoring program, and you gave back to me and allowed me my way and my path to kind of to get there. So I once again thank you again for that. We do have a comment from one of our audience members. Okay. May DeVera said, "That's actually brave, leaving the place that brings nothing but toxicity." Yes, I'm sure many of us can relate to, having to leave our home environments, our hometowns, that may not have been the best for us. So that was just so brave of you, Dr. Gary.
I mean, I agree with that. I don't want it to sound like, the bad part of what that could sound like, because obviously there's good things about the community. I always lived 1,000 miles away from my mom and dad, and I would think like, I can't go home for dinner. So I miss that. I always miss sort of that. I lived in Denver. I lived in Tampa. I lived in New York. So I was always 1,000 miles from Illinois. So, I miss that kind of thing. It's certainly a place appropriate for certain interests, and that backyard and driveway and growing garden things. I miss that. And I had that when I was.
Yes, they all sound very lovely. So we're going to go to our first commercial break of the evening. So everybody stay tuned for more Pink Table Talk with Dr. Gary Shelton.
Tune into Legal Treats with attorney Eileen Ligote Dizon
every Friday at 7 p.m. Central Time.
Get your weekly dose of legal knowledge, especially on family matters like divorce, child custody, child support, estate planning, probate and immigration.
Engage in discussions by posting your questions, comments, readings or shoutouts.
See you every Friday at 7 p.m. Central Time. That would be Saturday at 9 a.m. Philippines. Don't miss out.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Pink Table Talk. I'm your host, Dr. Carly D. The show is produced by Lawin Media Network, and you can find us either through our YouTube channel or our Facebook Live page. We are also on Twitch TV and over 18 different podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, Google, and Amazon. Tonight, we're talking with Dr. Gary Shelton, who is a nurse and oncology specialist and the author of the new book. So, Dr. Shelton, I am not even going to attempt to pronounce this title. So can you pronounce this title for our audience?
Yeah, actually can. It's not important though if one can pronounce it because it's a made up word. Platyosciandanthes amabilism. Given, and the book kind of explains how the word came about, but the whole science thing of growing up as a nurse and learning about intestinal worms, platyhelminthes, and that stuck with me because I thought it was such a fun word, platyhelminthes. We actually had to draw them. It didn't make any sense why we're drawing these worms, but in pathophys or something, but platyhelminthes stuck with me. So the platy, the metaphor of the book is about a cruise and how we can get self-hypnotized by just staring out at that line where the sea meets the sky. And maybe I talk a little too much about it in the book, but by hypnotizing, the ocean is my metaphor of how to get inside my head and imagine my possibilities, maybe imagine life's possibilities, and maybe question what is life all about. So the ocean piece is my metaphor. So platyosciandanthes, and amabilism just means the love of something. So.
Wow, that's so interesting. That's so wonderful. It reminds me of kind of like Greek mythology. That's what I thought when I saw this, the title, and I love Greek mythology. And, so when I saw this, I said, oh, this is so interesting. It's kind of a throwback to that. So that's really cool. So now you're into creating words too. Let's add that to your resume.
I will.
Yeah. So what inspired you to write this book? I know it's based on your cruise trip. And so tell us more about that.
Well, again, when we talk about nursing, I am a nurse. I was born and raised a nurse, even before I became one. Just that whole nurturing someone else, nurturing myself, that connection with people, animals. I mean, I like animals too. Just that humaneness, I think, which is the nursing piece. So I communicate as best as I can, and try to get people at ease, and walk in a room and people are crying and you cry for a while, but you connect with them. So my whole life is different connections, whether it's through painting, art. My first degree was in fine art, but I identify with the touching lives through communication. So I've always been a writer. I in my next book that I'm putting together, I went through things I wrote in grade school and high school that, of course, I kept because I thought it was good even then. But the reason for the book is just a sort of a setting for you to allow yourself to think freely, to think whimsical. I talk about sea serpents and Beanie and Cecil from the 60s cartoon, and just that's okay when it's appropriate. I talk a lot about humor in healthcare. It's not always appropriate, but I spoke the other day about, I know I'm rambling. I spoke the other day about humor in healthcare. That we don't lose our sense of humor when we get a cancer diagnosis. It's still there. True, you're going to focus on other things, but I still have a sense of humor with my cancer diagnosis, and I want you to remember that, so that when we're communicating, it's okay to be funny in an appropriate way. It would mean that you and I know each other well enough that we can do that. I might use humor as a form of denial, or I can't deal with something, so let's laugh it off. But I have a sense of humor, and that's important. So communicating. So I've always written something. I journal. I think everyone should journal or write things down. Mama said you're not a writer if you don't write something every day. I do write something every day for the most part. But so the reason for writing the book is just to try to get you and anybody who might be reading this book to be a little more whimsical, to daydream a little bit, to allow that's okay. And, look to your dreams, like the songs say. And at some point you kind of think, I feel better now. Maybe I have to go back out there in the jungle and, deal with a lot of stuff that isn't very pleasant. But I allowed myself a moment to sort of get inside my head. And maybe that's what people can do just by that moment of staring out at the ocean, where the line where the sea meets the sky. Of course, I'm looking for a sea serpent, and maybe one of those mythologic things that come out of the Greek mythology.
Yes. That's really beautiful. I really love the fact that you said that just because someone's received a cancer diagnosis doesn't mean they lost their humor. All too often I may walk on an oncology unit and it's so quiet. You don't hear, like you said, anyone laughing. You don't hear a lot of talking. It's always very somber and kind of depressing in a way. But I think that's so beautiful. If we can use humor when we communicate with them, try to be a little bit more lighthearted. I think that would really help, especially in those moments.
I think so too. I mean, again, appropriate.
Yeah, of course,
And you might have to know somebody before you know it's appropriate. There's different kinds of humor, and some of it's not particularly funny if you take it the wrong way, and yet the other group over there is just laughing their heads off. And it's really hurtful when I hear it, because they're making fun of somebody and find that funny. So there's, ways to have humor be inappropriate or appropriate, but it's a way to communicate and to connect. My next book might be, in my next nursing book, communication to connect. We all communicate. Animals communicate. Our body parts communicate. Trees communicate with with the ground. But how connected are they? So, there's that piece of, are you even speaking my language? We're talking, but I don't get it. We didn't connect.
Yeah, that's so profound, and it's so funny. I just recently took Crucial Conversations class. It was a 2-day class. And we were talking about how people in this generation, they don't know how to communicate. Everybody's so used to talking either through text or social media. So I thought what you said was so profound in how you said we might communicate, but we might not connect. And I think that's so true for today. Like people are talking, we might be talking, texting, emailing, but we're not really connecting as past generations did.
Or if we are, we may not know it. We don't realize it, right?
Yeah.
Your email to me could be very flowery and loving, but I didn't read every word because I was in a hurry, and I respond to you, or you asked me 3 questions. I only answered 1 because I didn't read the other 2, and yet we were communicating, right? We didn't really connect.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
That is so true. Yeah, that's something else we brought up today too, was people don't respond to emails. And we were like, you guys don't even close the loop, like to say, okay, received, noted, acknowledged. I think you're so right. Like a lot of people just don't really read, when they are trying to communicate. So that's something that we have lost. And I hope that we can start to regain that in our society, especially in healthcare. So I think that's really wonderful. I hope you do write that chapter or book.
I hope I do too, actually.
And so working in oncology all these years, I know that's such a heavy area to work in. What is one of the things that you have learned over the years working in that area? Because you see a lot of death. What is one life lesson that you can give us from your experience?
Well, I mean, we all are going to die. We all do die. Just sometimes it's not when we'd like it to happen. I always, again, the communication thing. When I first became a nurse, I wanted to be a psych nurse because I want to be in your head. And my psych experiences were more organic things that happened to people, and they weren't with me because of what was going on. So it wasn't as fulfilling to be able to talk to somebody because they weren't really following. So I also liked the science and sticking people with needles. And so oncology seemed like the perfect job because we absolutely have to communicate. I'm going to give you a drug that's going to make you sick. You need to understand that. And what can you do to help yourself? And what do I need to give you as far as tools to make that happen? Because at the end of the day, we're going to get you better, perhaps. So the brain piece and the communication piece is really a big part of oncology. Certainly the new science and the immunotherapies and targeted things. And we've come so far in the 40 years that I've been doing this. And it's like, oh my God, I love this. People that would die in 6 months are now alive 12 years later. It's fabulous for that. But the whole communication thing is why I went into oncology. And I think that, I tell myself, it's heavy. You what, any nursing, any line of work where you connect with other people, there's those people that you have to like because you work with them. But if they were your next door neighbor, you wouldn't like them. And there are those people that you can't imagine liking, but you fall in love with them, and and they're going to die. And for me, it's of course because of their diagnosis. But oncology has never been that depressing to me. Yes, it's horrible, and yes, people die. I've seen a lot of good now, but I know I didn't cause the cancer, so I can talk to you or whoever I'm in the room with, and help them explore what's the why me questions, the things we can't really answer. Sometimes you have to let that go because it's not your fault. And so the communication piece, again, is why I like oncology so much. And sometimes I cry with patients. Sometimes we laugh because I know it's okay. But the whole nursing thing for me and identifying as that really is my life. A creative person, yes, but as a healthcare provider, but the connections I learn from my patients with oncology. Sometimes just having, again, we all are going to die, but to have somewhat of a life-limiting illness, your perspective changes, your perception of things change. And and sometimes in a good way, because you can enjoy today and not be thinking about the darn trip tomorrow or something, because today's really all that matters. And certainly in that setting it is. And I'm there with that patient and we're connecting, and it's very uplifting and rewarding, and I enjoy that.
Yes, that's so wonderful. And it's so true, and it took me to have my own near-death experiences and illnesses to learn to appreciate the now. We're always so focused on like 5 years down the road. Okay, I got to have this. I got to do this. I got to do that. We're always still thinking so far ahead and planning our next move. And we're not just living in the moment, and just enjoying today. And so, I think that that's wonderful. And that is a great lesson for everyone. Enjoy today, live today. That's why I'm like, you know what? If I do want that milkshake, I'm going to have that milkshake, If I'm here tomorrow, then, maybe I'll walk a little extra. But, it's like, it just allows me just to enjoy things, and not always be worrying and fretting about what ifs, and so I think that that's just something I wish more people would do.
Well, and that's the point of my book, watching that line and taking yourself somewhere else, even though you didn't go anywhere, and be thinking of something else that allows you to be in the moment, even though then you have to jump back in and do something really important.
Yes. So true. We're going to go to our second commercial break of the evening, but you guys stay tuned for more Pink Table Talk with Dr. Gary Shelton.
Join us for a captivating new series where Lawin sits down with the trailblazers of the music and entertainment world. Discover the stories behind the faces and voices that shape our culture and community.
We will bring you exclusive interviews with industry legends and rising stars. Behind the scenes insights, and get a peek into the creative processes and personal journeys. Artists and performers and their upcoming shows and events.
Stay tuned for more updates and sneak peeks. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our channel.
Beyond Health and Wellness, Dr. Rich and Nurse MJ. Let's explore the journey to holistic well-being. Listen to insights that inspire a healthier, happier life. Uncover. Empower yourself. Take charge of your well-being. Whether you're looking for tips on nutrition, mental health, or fitness, this show is for you. Beyond Health and Wellness. Every Friday 8 p.m. Central Time. That's Saturday 10 a.m.
Welcome back, everybody. We're here talking tonight with Dr. Gary Shelton and his new book that focuses on self-reflection as well as living in the moment and being more whimsical and learning to enjoy life. We do have a comment from one audience member, May DeVera. She says, "Thank you for those words. I needed to hear that."
Wow.
Yes, we've been talking tonight about just living in the moment and self-reflection. Dr. Gary, when I read your book, I was laughing. I mean, it is really just so fun. And I just thought, the way you express things and just the little dramas you were having, on your trip, it was just so funny. And I couldn't stop laughing. There's one sentence here that I really love. You said, "Oh my God, is that how a diva would have reacted? Oh, no, no, no." And so I immediately thought of myself and how I always have my mini crises about, like, it could be just the most minor inconveniences, and I'm like, oh my God, I really am such a diva. So can you talk to us more about that?
Well, I can talk about being a diva, but I Well, the thing about my humor or whatever is that sometimes I'll say something that I know is funny, but people aren't necessarily sure whether I'm being serious or whether something has happened. I sometimes say that I'm a diva and I should be treated like one at times because of my experience, because of, my insight, whatever. But I don't mean it, like I'm rich and famous diva that, but that moment of recognize me, appreciate me, that's a diva, I think. And for a moment, maybe you're too far inside yourself. And then you realize it's part of what makes me me, and you realize who I am, but I also am interested in the diva in you. So it goes beyond that. Yeah. I think that the ability to have some insight, even for a moment, like we talk about a stressful situation at work. Oncology, of course, as you were saying, it's pretty stressful. Not that other areas of nursing or healthcare is not, or other jobs, of course. But for that moment, maybe I'm taking a bathroom break. And in that bathroom break, maybe I'm not on the toilet doing something like that. I'm in the bathroom because it's a way to close a door and get away from a situation for just a few minutes. And maybe then I can do my little exercise where I'm imagining myself on that balcony on a cruise ship, looking out, hoping that a sea serpent will jump out of the water, and maybe a whale does or something. And it is like that. I noticed that, we're in a constant state of flux, but we're not moving on a ship. So that, that's sort of my metaphor with the book as well. I'm looking out, we're moving, but that stuff that we just passed didn't go anywhere. And so it's like, how can that happen at the same time? And that allows me then to realize I left for a moment and now I'm back and I feel better. I allowed myself to relax a little bit, and I can open that door, flush the toilet if I have to, and then re-enter that established, workforce or whatever. And I had a moment and I feel better, like the whole yoga thing or deep breathing and self-hypnosis of some kind. Yeah. Creative visualization, the whole thing. Which is
and I think that's important. Yeah, that's very important to do. I was giving a class the other day, and we talked about being triggered and what is a coping mechanism if you're triggered at work. And one of the audience said that she has to leave that space to get that 5 minutes or whatever it is to kind of, like you said, that woosah, to kind of clear her mind and get out of that space before she reacts negatively. So I think, that's a perfect example of that.
Mm-hmm. If and in nursing, again, maybe this could be a metaphor as well. I'm going to see 6 patients in 6 spaces, and I'm going from room to room, and I have had 6 opportunities to connect, and something horrible happened and something fabulous happened. But I'm going room to room, and I can't bring what I just experienced into the next room because that's not part of the reality in that room. How do you let that go quickly? Yes. You are just crying with the patient, and now you have to walk in and, say something else. And how do you do that? Like your friend was saying, you do have to somehow create that. Let me get away. Let me change. Let me get back. And maybe it doesn't, you can't leave the space. So how do you do that on your own? You just sort of look away maybe and turn your head and you're back in that moment. But the challenges of life, aren't they?
Yes. No, it's so true. And, my friends, they're always teasing me, about being a diva and complaining about the most minor inconveniences. And how I can maybe over exaggerate those moments. But you're right. You then have to kind of bring yourself back and to be like, you know what, that's really not that big of a deal. And you kind of have to take yourself out of that mental space and clear your head and then get back to reality.
And they say, don't sweat the small stuff or something. But I think that's the stuff that we do sweat. And I think maybe that's okay. The bigger stuff, you can't probably bring me into that. it's something that's happening with you. So I think it's okay to, well, as again, it's a self-reflective thing, and that's part of what I'm stressing. To self-reflect doesn't mean finding your faults. It allows you to see your possibilities. That's what I think. And then maybe where can you go from that? You know, write that down because I'm not sure I remembered it, but absolutely. Yeah.
I know we got a lot of great one-liners and quotes from you today so far. But I like that, you know, I like that you say self-reflection is not just looking for the negative, but for the possibilities. Mm-hmm. I think that's really wonderful, you know, and I think if more people can get into that mindset, they will try to reach more for the stars and really reach their full potential. So I think I love that. That's really beautiful. I got to put it on a T-shirt or a mug or something.
I give you the rights to it. I think, I mean, it's all, we're always learning, and we should always be learning our entire life. Yeah. Like that mentor-mentee thing. I mean, if I don't get something from you, what can you get from me? And to just realize maybe then too, like when you're being precepted or learning a job, you may learn from somebody that you would never do it that way. But you learned that. You saw somebody do something, and maybe you're thinking, I would never have acted that way. I would never say that. I would never. But you learned something from that. And maybe that also will be a memory thing and a trigger thing. And when that moment comes back, you will realize, now that's what he or she said or did. It worked in that setting, but it wasn't the way I would have done it. And so that is another way of learning.
Yes, it is so true. And, you know, I do a lot of training with like new grad nurses, and they're always coming to me and being like, well, this is not how I would do it. And and they're trying to like direct their own orientation, you know, instead of just living in the moment and kind of taking it in, you know. And I always tell them, look, well, once you're off orientation, you can do it however way you want. You know, if you want to skip around and jump or whatever you want to do, you can develop your own style. But for that moment, you know, embrace it, take it in, and learn it. You know, I think a lot of times we have such strong wills, but there's comfort in yielding, you know. And I think a lot of times people don't want to yield. They don't want to let someone else hold the reins. And I think that that's such a good lesson for life, is sometimes let someone else lead, you know, just embrace it.
And it's a learning opportunity. And again, maybe you allow it because it's happening, and then you reflect later, there was probably something positive in there. Maybe it isn't yours, but there was something, there was a moment of why did that person do that? And maybe that's what you need to think about. Yeah. And then maybe if I was in that situation, truly, maybe I would have acted that way. So I did learn something from it. Yeah. And then
yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
Then you walk in the next room and you forget what you just learned. But then, you know.
Yeah, that's so true. You know, you're so true in what you say, because for me, my experience as a new nurse, I had a terrible preceptor. I mean, she's a wonderful, you know, nurse. She's very, you know, studious and by the policy. But for me, it wasn't the best experience. So I learned what not to be as a nurse or a preceptor or a trainer. And it actually drove my career. This is why I went into education. It's because I wanted to encourage the new nurses when they get on the floor instead of to discourage them. So that experience, it showed me how not to be. And my whole entire career, even to this day, I stray from those things that she did, so that way I can now encourage and uplift people in a more positive way during their training or education.
I totally agree with that. I mean, because I can remember one of my preceptors was afraid of me. She thought I was somebody.
Not you.
Yeah, she was afraid of me. So I didn't get the best experience from her because she was I don't know what she thought it would happen to me, but so I had to then talk to my managed person and ask to have someone else because I wasn't learning anything. And I needed to. It wasn't that I knew everything, but I'd come from somewhere and had some notoriety, whatever. So she was afraid of me, which was uncomfortable for both of us. So yeah, that didn't work. But again, that's something to learn.
Yes, it's so true. We're going to go to our last commercial break of the evening, but we're going to be back very soon with more Pink Table Talk with Dr. Gary Shelton. So everybody stay tuned.
Calling all food lovers and aspiring culinary stars. Get ready to turn your kitchen dreams into reality with the Commissary Kitchen, hosted by none other than the adobo queen herself, Nancy Reyes Lumen. From perfecting classic dishes to navigating the commissary business landscape, Nancy's got you covered. Because in her kitchen, every dish tells a story, and every recipe is an opportunity to shine. Join us every Thursday 8 p.m. CST or Friday 10 a.m. PH time, and let's cook up something extraordinary together.
Welcome back to Pink Table Talk. We've been having such an interesting and delightful conversation tonight with Dr. Gary Shelton and his book that I still don't think I can pronounce. But I do love the Greek inspiration for this title. We've been talking tonight about self-reflection, about taking time for ourselves and self-care and life lessons and learning. So Dr. Shelton, there's another part of the book that I found to be quite interesting, and it's actually just the title of one of your chapters, because you being such, you have so many certifications and degrees and accolades. So for me, I was just really shocked by this title. You said that I'm not the most original or the most interesting. But I actually find that you to be the opposite. I think you are so very interesting and you have such a life full of adventure and great journeys that you've gone through. So can you tell us more about that title?
Can I just read that paragraph?
Yes.
I'm not the smartest person in the world or even the smartest from Illinois. I'm not likely in the top 5 either. This is evidenced by the dozens of IQ tests I have taken. I was never the most popular, except maybe in grade school, but only for a few days. It would be an understatement to share that I would never have been considered the most masculine or the most likely to succeed. It is hard to be the most or best, or even the worst or least. However, I have always been interesting. Surely everyone would agree.
Yes, and I do have to agree. You're definitely so interesting and you are very smart. I mean, I don't think anybody out here could have so many degrees and certifications and write book chapters if they weren't smart. But you are so interesting. And you know what I love about you is your fashion and your sense of style. I remember the first time meeting you, it was during COVID when we met up in the park because, you know, we were still doing the whole outside, the outside thing in New York. And you were wearing like a 3-piece suit with a pocket watch, with a little hat. I said, oh, this guy, I'm going to like him. He is so interesting. He is so cool. And, you know, I just thought, what a fun guy, you know, so.
I mean, I think that points out something else about us, about people. Well, and I'm not the smartest in the world. There is a little bit of that in the book about where I thought I was smarter than I really was. Or maybe I wasn't as smart as I thought I was, which will be embellished in my next book. But, you know, the whole being transformational, you absolutely are. And I, you know, sometimes there's a transaction that has to happen and you have to say, guys, this has to be done and it must be done this way. Get the deed done, transaction done. But being transformational, I can pull things out of you because I know things maybe that you don't even know you're capable of doing. And I think the whole connecting piece with communication allows us to build someone else. It's not all about me. I mean, I can talk a lot about myself, but and maybe some people think that I'm a narcissist, but it's not that in my mind. I know myself, and I'm thinking that my example might help somebody else. So I'm transformational, and with my students, with my peers, I might suggest, I was going to do this project, but I think you would be so much better at it than me. Why don't you work on it? And then ask me to help if you need to. The whole emotional intelligence. I think that, we gain some of that as we get more experience, as we're more seasoned, not necessarily older, because age and experience aren't necessarily hand in hand. But I think that being transformational allows me to separate myself from others and see what they're capable of, because that's what I want. I want us all to be better. I want the world to be better. I hope 2025 is a great year for everyone, no matter what they do. But in 26 too, maybe. So, that's my thing with that. But I don't want you to think that I think I'm so smart, because I know better. And I do. I mean, I spend a lot of money on glasses. I've tried to put a few different ones on just now to see if anyone would notice. But how I identify. You're a diva. I'm diva-esque. But I wear this with a pair of shorts. It's okay. That's what I do. I have hats in the background. I don't know if you can see them, but important to me, right? Which helps me then allow me to be me, and therefore I can reach out to you better, and I can promote my self-reflection, because I think everybody could get to know themselves a little better. And never give up dreams, and be whimsical when you can, and remember what that was like as a child. We should still have that in the right setting, of course.
Yes. Oh, so true, Dr. Shelton. That is so true. So what is your takeaway message from your first novel? And will there be more novels down the road?
The takeaway really is, I hope that people get what I tried to give in the book, and simple of just self-reflection, and how maybe that can be done through some of the metaphors that I talk about. I like to bring, something like from the 60s or the 80s or the 90s. Again, younger people wouldn't get some of my references, but people that do, like you were saying, you laughed some while you were reading. People, I know what Gary's talking about. And then for a moment, you're thinking of that, remembering that, and then moving on. And you're busy at work and you have to keep doing things. But I think that my takeaway from the first book is just, guys, we're older, we all get older, and except, of course, when we're no longer alive, and we all do die. But I think that it's important to hold on to some of that daydreaming. Even we all have daydreams. We create a visualization. You're going to buy that new car. You already see yourself in it before you go in to buy it. That dress you saw, those shoes you saw, you already see yourself in it, or you wouldn't even be considering buying them or getting them. So that's a way of self-hypnosis. You see the future before you've made a decision. I think that's what's important about that. For my next book, it dives deeper into the character that's in this book, which is pretty autobiographical, but it's not meant to be, because, again, who am I to think you might want to read about me? It's about the experience. And I was bullied a lot, and didn't become a nurse right away because I wasn't ready for that neon arrow pointing at my head. But when I was ready, it was perfect. And I've never looked back, and I've never been unhappy about it. Nor have I ever not been allowed to do the job and do it well and be appreciated for what I give. But I think that my next book will talk a little bit about bullying, and looking at some of those bullying experiences. I wished I had had the guts or the nerve to do some of the things that I would do today in that setting. But of course I wouldn't have, because I would have been beaten up and, who knows what, but, and felt bad about it. So, but that's the, and then the nursing textbook about communication. Those are on the two.
That's awesome. That's really awesome, Dr. Shelton. One of our audience members, May DeVera, said, I would want to read a book about you, Dr. Shelton. And I love this book. It brought me some joy and some laughter. And, you know, like you said, I was able to relate to some of those moments where you're like, oh, I'm a diva. And it's like, I know what he's talking about. Like I said, a 3-piece suit in the middle of COVID in the park, you know. So I think you are interesting, and I think you have such a wonderful knowledge and advice to give to the world through your writing. And so where can people buy your book? Where can they find this?
It's actually an ebook, or it's a soft cover or a hardcover. Anyone who sells online books, a lot of people have gone through Amazon, and that's where some of the accolades and interesting reviews are placed. If you Google the title or even my name, pages of places that you can buy the book. It's not physically in the stores, and probably won't be. It's part of Simon & Schuster, but they weren't going to do that unless it was more successful. If anyone were to purchase and wanted a signing, have a book fair, have a book club, and I'll fly in and do some reading and signing and anything like that. So,
that's wonderful. Oh, that's so nice. Yeah, that's so wonderful. I thank you so much, Dr. Shelton, for coming on the show today. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your passion for people in life with us. And I just look forward to more in the future from you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone can reach out to me. So I welcome any comments or anything.
Yes. Thank you so much. And you have a website. I think it's
GEBShelton.com.
Yes. Wonderful. Definitely reach out for some, and look at those glasses. Yes, so many beautiful and cool glasses. And just definitely a very interesting man. Thank you all for watching tonight. We will be back again next week with Olivera Jankowska, the Director of Education with the Mayor's Office. Once again, you guys can watch us live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 o'clock Eastern Time on Lawin Media Network, YouTube, Facebook, or on 18 different podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and Google. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I hope you all have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.